A lot of people think that better hearing comes down to just choosing the right hearing aid. But the truth is, two people can wear the exact same top-range hearing device and have completely different outcomes. And that is because hearing success isn't really about the device. It is about the care that surrounds it. And in this video, I am going to explain to you how hearing care shapes the product and the outcomes and how it should all look like. Welcome to EMA and Dan. If you're new here, my name is Daniel and a very warm welcome. I'm a hearing care professional and the owner of Ear Studio in Castle Hill in Sydney. But more importantly, I spend my days helping people, not just to hear better, but actually to understand better and leave behind the challenges of hearing loss. And in this channel, I break down how hearing really works, how the hearing care landscape looks in Australia, and what you can do to get the best possible outcome. Now, I invite you to follow along in this journey. Now, hearing aids are incredible pieces of technology. They are more powerful, smaller, and smarter than they've ever been. But technology on its own doesn't fix hearing. Hearing is not just an ear problem. It's a brain problem too, and a lifestyle problem, and a communication issue. Every person's hearing loss is different, and what they experience is different as well. Not just in how much hearing they've lost, but in how they hear, what they struggle with, and what matters to them most in their day-to-day life. Someone who struggles in meetings has very different needs to someone who struggles in family conversation and social settings. Someone who's active outdoors, again, has different priorities to someone who spends most of their time in a controlled environment at home. And this is where things often go wrong. When the focus is only on the device or the brand or the model or the list of features, the bigger picture is usually missed, because no hearing aid works well unless it is properly assessed, precisely programmed and carefully fine-tuned and supported over time. And all those aspects matter enormously. The device absolutely plays a role, but it's only one part of a much, much bigger process. So let me walk you through what that process should actually look like. We've already talked briefly about what happens in a hearing assessment in an earlier video and what best practices are, the hearing aid recipe, so to speak. If you haven't seen those yet, I'd encourage you to go back and watch those videos first, because they really set the foundation and the scene for everything to come now. In this video, I want to show you how best practices should be applied across an entire hearing care journey on an example. In the first step, and we've discussed that before, it's a thorough hearing assessment. And it really does need to be very detailed, because it builds the foundation for everything else that follows in your journey. The primary purpose of that assessment is for you and for your clinician to fully understand where your hearing is at and how your hearing actually affects your life. Just from a graph, I can only see aspects of your hearing, but not the impact on your day-to-day life. I'm not only interested in what the hearing test shows, I'm interested in how those results translate into real-world listening situations. And if based on that appointment, further investigation is needed, for example, involving your general practitioner or even an ear, nose and throat specialist, then a detailed report is prepared for you and shared with you and your medical team. And then the second appointment is what we call a device discussion or a solutions discussion. And that appointment may happen immediately after the assessment, but in many cases it takes place on a different day. During this appointment, we would discuss with you any questions that have come up since the assessment. We talk about what you want to achieve, and then I outline the options that are appropriate for you. That includes the technical considerations, information about costs, and importantly, the realistic expectations of what we can actually achieve with hearing devices in your particular instance. In most cases, a decision would be made in that appointment of whether or not to proceed with hearing devices. If you decide to go ahead, this appointment is also where we will begin to prepare the devices. This may include taking impressions for custom-made ear molds if that's required or appropriate. In most cases, that's what we do. That preparation phase typically takes anywhere between 1 and 3 weeks, dependent on a few factors. During that time, we will also make the necessary technical preparations for the fitting. So we check the devices even before you come in for the fitting. So once your devices are ready, they are built and they are fully tested, you will come in for the fitting appointment. That appointment usually takes somewhere around 60 to 90 minutes. In that first session, we carry out, so to speak, the initial fine-tuning of both hearing devices. That is based on your hearing loss, while we also take into account that your brain is not yet used to hearing that way and we can't correct the hearing loss fully in that first appointment. Now, that first fitting appointment also includes a thorough orientation phase. So you will learn how to use the devices, how to handle them, how to charge them, for example, how to insert them, how to care for them, and what you can expect over the next weeks. This is the first day you actually take the devices home. Before you leave, we already have your first follow-up appointment scheduled for you. Usually that is 1 week after the fitting. During that first week, you'll wear the devices as much as you can. You'll notice a lot of new sounds, and some of them may sound unusual or even irritating at first, and that is completely normal. It normally doesn't last very long, maybe a couple of days. And it's simply part of the adjustment process of your brain to those new sounds. Depending on your situation, you may also be given specific listening exercises to complete while wearing the devices throughout the first week. These exercises actually help your brain to adapt more efficiently to the new sound input that the ears with the hearing aid are now sending to the brain. And then the next step after the first week, as I mentioned, is the first follow-up appointment. This is primarily like a check-in appointment. We look basically at how things are going. We address any immediate concerns or questions that may have come up, and we review how you're managing the devices day to day. We see how they fit, how they sound, all those type of things. Now, we must be honest, at the first follow-up or in the first week or two, we're actually not expecting or looking for dramatic improvements yet. The goal here in the first week or two is comfort, familiarity, and a consistency of use. If we can get them comfortable and we can get you familiar with it and we can get you to wear the devices as much as you can, like ideally 12, 14 hours a day, then we know the basis for really good outcomes is already set. Now, we may make in that initial follow-up minor adjustments to ensure that you can kind of continue wearing the devices comfortably if they were a bit too loud or something like that. And you'll then continue wearing them for another 2 to 3 weeks. And during that period, you may again be given further exercises, particularly targeting how your brain processes speech in the presence of background noise, because that is the biggest challenge for most people with or without hearing aids. Now, this is actually a very active phase of your journey. The brain is really relearning what to do with the new sounds that it is receiving. And after that first few weeks comes the second follow-up appointment. By now, you've started to acclimatize to the devices, and we will likely see the first positive outcomes. This allows us now to make more meaningful changes to the settings, provide additional controls if that's needed, and begin measuring your performance more objectively. Whereas in the first phase, it was really about making things comfortable subjectively. Once you're used to those, we really want to move into the objective phase where we measure things. We may assess things like speech understanding with and without the devices, review your subjective experiences of your day-to-day, and we carry out some technical measurements to ensure that the devices are functioning exactly as intended. You'll then continue wearing the devices for another 2 to 3 weeks before returning for the third and mostly the final follow-up. At that appointment, we remeasure exactly how you're hearing with the devices, and we compare those results to earlier measurements without the devices. We repeat the impact questionnaires and compare all that to the goals that you had in the beginning, so that we can basically assess how you're processing against those goals. At that point, most people are at the kind of 6-week mark, and they feel quite confident and comfortable with their hearing and with the devices. In the vast majority of cases, we have achieved the goals that we have set out to achieve. Most people at that stage don't even feel that they wear the hearing aids anymore, and you'll continue using the devices long-term from here onwards. Now, I want to address in the unlikely event that at that stage, the 6 to 8 week mark, we haven't achieved the outcomes that we were aiming for, we are going to reassess and adjust the treatment plan and maybe go a completely different route. That may include, as I mentioned, changing the direction entirely, but it's actually rare that we don't achieve good outcomes when we follow best practice principles over the course of 6 weeks. So to summarize, the journey looks like this. First is a thorough assessment, followed by a device discussion and the actual decision if you want to go ahead with hearing devices. That is then followed by preparation and a fitting appointment. 3 structured follow-up appointments follow over around 6 weeks, and that is what best practice hearing care actually looks like. As you can see, this is not something that can be done properly in one single appointment. If I were to say, I cut everything out or do it in one appointment only, a lot of what makes hearing care effective and good, I would have to leave out, and that's not what we want to do. Now, while the initial fitting journey is completed at this point, the ongoing servicing and review of your hearing is only just at the beginning. We'll talk about that ongoing care process in another episode, because that is actually really, really important. Can be compared to a car that you need to get in for regular servicing so it always runs well. But look, we'll discuss that in another video, and until then, I wish you all the best and bye-bye.